I need a minute about the new hours. I have a 7-year-old daughter. School lets out at 3:15. There is no one else to get her. Her mother passed 2 years ago.
I am sorry about your wife for everyone. And then there is no policy, only favorites.
It is not a favor. It is a child.
You can submit the 72-hour form. From today, everyone stays at their desks until 5:30. This is a personal matter. This is a business.
Did she read my emails about the routing?
I have no time to read a coordinator's opinion on systems decided at the executive level.
I did, 4 times, and the channel was you.
Do as she said or resign. Those are your options.
You could have asked one more question before you gave one more order.
The rain started at noon, and by 1 o'clock it was coming down in sheets against the glass, turning the whole office floor into a gray aquarium of flickering monitors. Owen Callahan stood at his cubicle with a cardboard box in his hands. It was the kind of box that had held printer paper once, and now it held a coffee mug, a tangle of charger cables, and a small framed photograph of a little girl with a gap where her front tooth used to be. 41 people watched him over the tops of their partitions and pretended not to. Nobody said a word. Somewhere behind the frosted glass of the corner office, a woman was already deciding she had won. She had not. She just didn't know it yet. 7 hours earlier, the day had still felt ordinary. Owen had been at Meridian Freight for 9 years. He was a coordinator, which meant he was the man who made sure that things arrived where they were supposed to arrive, when they were supposed to arrive, without anyone above him ever having to learn how. He knew the rail schedules by heart. He knew which drivers drank and which ones lied, and which ones would drive through a blizzard for a handshake. He knew that the whole delicate machine of the company ran on 1,000 small human agreements that never showed up in any spreadsheet. He also knew that at 3:15 every weekday, a yellow door opened at Lincoln Elementary, and a 7-year-old named Nora came through it, looking for one face in the crowd. His face, because there was no other face left to look for. Marissa had been gone 2 years now. A car, a wet road, a phone call that split Owen's life cleanly into a before and an after. In the before, there had been 2 of them to carry everything. In the after, there was one. And the one thing Owen had promised himself, standing in a black suit that didn't fit right, was that Nora would never come through that yellow door and find nobody there. Not once, not ever. For 7 years the arrangement had worked. Owen came in early, before the sun, before the coffee was made. He worked through lunch at his desk with a sandwich he'd packed himself. And at 2:45 he stood up and he left. And he drove 20 minutes across town to stand at that yellow door with the other parents. And he waited for the gap-toothed grin that made the whole exhausting arithmetic of his life add up to something. Nobody had ever minded. His old boss, a big soft-spoken man named Delgado, who'd since retired to Arizona, had shaken his hand the day Marissa died and said only, "You get your girl. The freight can wait. Freight always waits." And Owen had never once let the freight suffer for it. He made up the hours in the dark of the morning. He answered his phone at 10 at night from his kitchen table while Nora slept. He was, by every measure that mattered, the most reliable man in the building. But Delgado was in Arizona now, and 3 weeks ago, a new name had appeared on the door of the corner office. Gavin. She came from somewhere east, from a company that had been praised in the business pages for streamlining, which is a soft word for the hard thing it describes. She was young and precise, and she wore her competence like armor. On her first day, she called an all-hands meeting and stood at the front of the room and said, "This company has been coasting on personal favors and loose habits. That ends now. We run on policy. Policy is fair, because policy applies to everyone." But Owen had felt something cold settle in his stomach, because he knew what policy could not see. Policy could not see a yellow door at 3:15. Policy could not see a driver named Hutchins who would take a load nobody else would touch, because Owen had once loaned him gas money and never asked for it back. Policy could not see the 10,000 invisible threads that held the whole thing together. So Owen did what he had always done when he saw a problem coming. He wrote it down. Over those 3 weeks, he sent Gavin 4 emails. Careful ones, respectful ones. He explained that the new routing system she was implementing had a flaw in how it handled the Western Rail corridor. He explained that if they cut the manual verification step to save the 90 seconds she'd flagged as inefficient, they would lose the only human check on a data feed that was wrong about 1 time in 50. He explained, in the 4th and last email, that a single bad routing on the Kellerman account could cascade into a 40-hour backlog because the Kellerman contract had penalty clauses that triggered a chain of reroutes. He wrote, at the end of that 4th email, I know this isn't how it looks on paper, but paper isn't where the freight actually moves. I'm happy to walk you through it anytime. Just ask. He never got an answer. Not one. The emails sat in an inbox somewhere behind the frosted glass, unread or unregarded. It made no difference which. Which is how the ordinary morning stopped being ordinary. At 9 o'clock, Gavin sent a memo to the entire coordination floor. Effective immediately, it read, all personnel are required to be present at their stations until end of business at 5:30. All prior informal arrangements regarding hours are hereby rescinded. Exceptions require written approval submitted 72 hours in advance. Owen read it twice. Then he stood up, and he walked to the frosted glass, and he knocked. Come in. She was behind a desk that had nothing on it but a laptop and a single pen laid perfectly parallel to the edge. She did not look up right away, which was, he would think later, its own kind of answer. Ms. Gavin, he said, I need a minute about the new hours. The policy is clear, Mr. Callahan. I understand that. I'm not asking to bend it for convenience. I have a daughter. She's 7. School lets out at 3:15, and there's nobody else to get her. Her mother passed 2 years ago. I've had an arrangement for the pickup since before you came, and I've always made up the time, every hour. I can show you 9 years of records. Now she looked up, and her face was not cruel. That was the thing Owen would try to explain to people afterward, when they wanted her to be a monster. She was not a monster. She was just certain. She had the calm, closed face of someone who had already decided that certainty was the same thing as being right. I'm sorry about your wife, she said, and she may even have meant it. But if I make an exception for you, I make it for everyone. And then there's no policy, there's just favorites. I won't run a floor on favorites. It's not a favor, Owen said quietly. It's a child. You can submit the 72-hour form. Starting today, everyone is at their desks until 5:30. She'll be standing at a locked door in the rain by 3:30. Then I'd suggest you arrange other childcare, Mr. Callahan. That's a personal matter. This is a business. The rain ticked against the window. Owen stood very still. He thought about the 4 emails. He thought about the flaw in the Western corridor and the Kellerman penalty clauses, and every warning he had folded into careful, respectful sentences and sent into a silence that had never once answered him. Did you read my emails? He asked. About the routing? Something flickered across her face. Impatience, maybe. I don't have time to read a coordinator's opinion on systems that have already been decided at the executive level. If there's an operational concern, put it through the proper channel. I did. 4 times. The channel was you. Her jaw tightened. Do as I said, or quit, Mr. Callahan. Those are your options. I have a company to run. And there it was, laid on the table between them, flat and final, like the pen beside her laptop. Owen looked at her for a long moment. He was not an angry man. Grief had burned most of the anger out of him a long time ago, and left behind something quieter and harder to move. When he spoke, his voice was almost gentle. You could have asked one more question, he said, before you gave one more order. Then he turned around, and he walked back to his desk, and he took the lid off a box that had once held printer paper. He didn't make a scene. That wasn't in him. He simply began to take his life off the walls of his cubicle. The mug Nora had painted for him at a birthday party. Lopsided, glazed the color of a bruise, with the word Dad fired crooked into the side. The cables, The little cactus that had somehow survived 9 years of fluorescent light and neglect. And the photograph, always the photograph last, the gap-toothed grin, the girl in a yellow raincoat because she loved the rain, the way only children who haven't yet learned to dread it can. The floor had gone silent. 41 people, and not one keyboard clattering. They watched him lower each piece of himself into the box, and they understood, in the way a room sometimes understands a thing all at once, that they were watching something they would remember. A woman 2 cubicles down, Ellen from billing, stood halfway up. "Owen," she started. He shook his head, small and kind. "It's all right, Ellen. Watch the Kellerman account for me. Somebody's going to need to." He wasn't being dramatic. He was being a coordinator, right up to the last second, thinking about the freight even as he stopped being responsible for it. He tucked the flaps of the box closed. He didn't look at the corner office. He walked to the elevator, with the whole weight of 9 years balanced against his chest, and the doors closed, and he was gone. And at 3:15, when the yellow door of Lincoln Elementary swung open, and the children spilled out into the wet afternoon, there was one face in the crowd of waiting parents that mattered more than all the rest. Owen's face. He was early. He'd had nowhere else to be. Nora ran to him and hit him at the knees, and he swung her up, box and all forgotten in the trunk of the car, and she said, "You're never here this early." And he said, "I got the whole afternoon off, sweetheart." And it wasn't a lie. Exactly. She didn't need to know the rest today. Today she just needed her father. And for the first time in a long time, he had nothing to make up in the dark of the morning. He had all of it. He had her. That night, while Nora slept, Owen sat at his kitchen table and did not check his phone at 10 o'clock, because there was no one left to answer to. It was the strangest, hollowest freedom he had ever felt. Now, if you've ever loved someone who worked too hard for people who noticed too little, you already know why these stories matter. They're about the quiet ones. The ones who hold everything together and get thanked with a policy memo. If that's someone you love, or someone you've been, stay with me. Because the door Owen walked out of was not the end of the story. It was the hinge on which the whole thing turned. The unraveling started on Thursday. It started, as Owen had written it would, on the Western Rail corridor. A data feed came in wrong. One time in 50, exactly as he'd said. There was no one at the manual verification step anymore, because the 90-second check had been streamlined away. So the bad routing went through clean. 3 cars of Kellerman freight that should have gone to Denver went to a yard outside Salt Lake instead, and by the time anyone noticed, the penalty clause had triggered, and the penalty clause triggered a mandatory reroute, and the reroute collided with 2 other loads that were now sitting where they shouldn't be, and the whole delicate machine that ran on 1,000 small human agreements began, very quietly, to seize. By Friday, the backlog was 11 hours. By Monday, it was 30. The coordinators who were left worked until midnight and could not stop the bleeding, because the thing that had actually kept the bleeding from starting had never been in the system at all. It had been in the head of a man carrying a cardboard box down in an elevator. Kellerman's people called. Then Kellerman's lawyers called. The penalty figure had a comma in it that made the executives go pale. And somewhere in the middle of all of it, someone finally asked the question that no one had asked in 3 weeks. Didn't anybody see this coming? And Ellen from billing, who had watched a good man pack his life into a box and had not forgotten it, said, in a meeting full of people far above her pay grade, Owen saw it coming. He wrote it down. He sent it upstairs 4 times. The room got very quiet. That afternoon, behind the frosted glass, Gavin opened her inbox and searched a name she had told a grieving father she didn't have time to read. 4 emails. She opened the first one, then the second. She read all 4, in order, and then she read the last one again, the part at the bottom. The part that said, "I know this isn't how it looks on paper, but paper isn't where the freight actually moves. I'm happy to walk you through it any time. Just ask." She sat with that for a long time, longer than she had ever sat with anything. Outside her window, the rain had come back, the same gray rain, ticking against the same glass, and for the first time, she felt the cold weight of everything her policy could not see. She had not asked one more question. she had given one more order, and now there was a comma in a penalty figure, and 30 hours of freight sitting in the wrong yards, and a name in her inbox she could no longer look away from. It would have been easy for a certain kind of person to bury it, to blame the system, the feed, the corridor, the previous management. Gavin was many things, but she was not, in the end, a coward. That much has to be said for her. On Tuesday morning, she drove herself across town, through the rain, to an address in a personnel file, and she stood on a small front porch with no armor on at all, and knocked on Owen Callahan's door. He opened it in a flannel shirt with a dish towel over his shoulder. Behind him, somewhere in the house, a child's voice was singing off-key to a cartoon. He looked at her on his porch, and he did not gloat. He was too tired for that, and too decent besides. "Ms. Gavin." "Mr. Callahan." The rain dripped off the eave between them. "I read your emails. I figured somebody would, eventually. All 4. She swallowed. "You were right about every one of them. The corridor, the verification step, Kellerman. Every single thing you said would happen, happened, in the order you said it would happen." "I didn't want to be right," he said, and he meant it. "I wanted somebody to ask." That word landed on her like a stone. Ask. She stood there in the rain and made herself say the thing she had come to say, the thing that cost her. "I gave you an order when I should have asked you a question. I've thought about that every day since. You said it to me on your way out the door, and I didn't understand it until the whole floor was on fire." She took a breath. "I'd like you to come back. The company needs you. I need you. And I'm prepared to say that in front of everyone, because they all watched you leave, and they should all watch me ask you to return." Owen leaned against his own doorframe. He looked at her for a moment, this certain young woman who had come all this way to be uncertain in the rain. "I appreciate that," he said. "I do, but I can't go back to the way it was. So, here's how it would have to be." He counted it out, plain and even, the way he counted out rail schedules. "I come in early. I leave at 2:45, every day. No forms, no 72 hours. That's not a favor. That's the condition. At 3:15, I'm at a yellow door across town, rain or shine, for the next 11 years, until she doesn't need me there anymore. And when a coordinator on my floor tells you something about the freight, you read it. You don't have to agree, but you read it, and you ask the next question before you sign anything. Those are my terms." The rain filled the silence, and Gavin, who had walked into her first all-hands meeting 3 weeks ago and told a room full of people that the era of personal arrangements was over, stood on a stranger's porch and understood at last the difference between a rule and a reason. "Done," she said. "All of it. Done." From inside the house, the child's voice called out, "Dad, who is it?" Owen turned his head toward the sound, and something in his face softened the way it only ever did for that one voice. "Just somebody from work, sweetheart. Give me a minute." He looked back at Gavin. "You want to come in? There's coffee. I'll walk you through the corridor thing properly this time, the way I offered to in the first place." And she said yes. She stepped out of the rain and into a small warm house that smelled like toast and crayons, and a 7-year-old girl in mismatched socks peered around the corner at her with a gap-toothed grin. And Gavin, who ran on policy, who had never once in her hard, bright career been early to anything that mattered, began, that afternoon, to learn. Owen went back the following Monday. He carried the cardboard box in with him, the same one, the mug and the cactus and the photograph, and he unpacked his life back onto the walls of his cubicle, while 41 people who had watched him leave now watched him return. Nobody made a speech. Somebody started clapping, softly, and then it wasn't soft anymore, and Owen just shook his head and smiled and told them all to get back to work. The Kellerman account was a mess, and somebody had to fix it. He set the empty box down flat on the top of his filing cabinet, and he left it there. He never threw it away. Some people asked him why, over the years, why a man would keep an old beat-up paper box in plain sight. And Owen would tell them it wasn't a trophy, it was a reminder that a whole company had once come apart because one person in charge had been too sure to ask, and that a father had once been willing to carry everything he had out the door, rather than break a promise to a little girl at a yellow door in the rain. Owen made it to that door that afternoon at 3:15. He made it every afternoon after, and the freight, as an old man in Arizona had once promised him, always waited. These stories are made with love. If this one stayed with you, if it reminded you of someone who carries more than anyone knows, take a moment and subscribe. That is all I ask.